Bitcoin breaks all incompetent states, or states that both, if they're incompetent and coercive, then people opt out, and it's going to be this huge conflict. But if there's a sense of, binding, then Bitcoin is fine, because, people feel like the state is giving them something for what they're giving it, and so on, right? Like the social contract, so there's still a sense of society and community,
So it's like my thought on monarchy then, actually, because you'd shift back towards those states that are rendering valuable services, you would contract with. Those that are not, you would refuse.
Yeah, but in monarchy, not all kings are equal. It's like you can be a CEO and you can be the CEO of Facebook, right? Like, so, there'll be people who are the quote king, but king is, there's like ranks, right? There's like king and like duke and earl and count and whatever, right? Yeah. So the CEO or the leader, or whatever term we use, of a 100-person or 1,000-person town is not that of a million, is not that of a 10 million or so on. And is not that of the 1.4 billion person Chinese superstate drone armada crazy thing, that they're building. So, the problem is that what I think you're going to see is something where states want to try to porcupine themselves so they become indigestible to this gigantic, thing. And, I'm projecting out this future, by the way, where people are like, what about the US military? Well, it'll probably protect you. I should say protect. I was going to say protect the US homeland, but that's not even necessarily the case if there's civil conflict there, because one side may, any civil conflict is something where foreign powers tend to get involved. That didn't happen in the past, but if there's like nuclear weapons and so on, people might get involved. Who knows? Okay. It may be something where people decide to just try to stay out of it because Americans are crazy. Who the heck knows? But I do think that people just sort of projecting the current world out and thinking it's basically going to be the same are not really thinking about these sheer stressors on it that are already really strong, and then bumping them up 10x, plus the mismanagement within the US. It's not obvious that the whole thing stays together.
Right.
And this is why it's a scenario. Let's call it sci-fi fictional scenario. I'm not saying that I think that is exactly what's going to happen. I can see other kinds of outcomes. But I think that's one outcome.
I think you're very astute in that people tend to have a lot of inertia with their thinking, right? Whatever it is just going to sort of carry forward in a slightly varied form. But I think it was Stalin that there's decades where nothing happens.
Lenin, decades where nothing happens, and there's weeks where decades happen.
Exactly. So, and that tends to be the norm of history, right? Just there's periods of great upheaval, and it certainly feels like we're close to one. That's a very interesting thesis, because I had typically just saw Bitcoin bankrupting the nation state and creating purely decentralized world, but I hadn't considered the centralizing force of the CCP as a counterswing to that.